I'm Deana Driver, editor and publisher, DriverWorks Inc. in Saskatchewan, and this is Romie Christie. We're here in Romie's home in Calgary, Alberta, and she is the author of this incredible book, See You in the Touquet, A Memoir of War and Destiny, and I've been pleased to publish this. We've had this book out for a couple of years now, and it's the lovely, incredible story of Romie's dad, Sandy McPherson, who became a Saskatchewan judge and was a Canadian Army captain when he met the woman who became Romie's mom. And Dorothy Baruti was an English woman in Le Touquet, France. And it is their true story, war story, love story. Parts of it remind me of Anne Frank's journals because Dorothy wrote about what it was like to be imprisoned under the German authorities during the Second World War. And she vowed, well, let's let Romie tell a little bit of the story of how her parents met. And what we want to talk about today is some of the really neat interactions and messages that she's received from people after reading this story. So let's tell us a little bit about how your parents met.
Right. So my mom and her parents lived in Le Touquet. That's where they lived all of her childhood, and it was an occupied part of France during the war. Mm-hmm. And my mom, at one point was sent to prison by the Germans because someone said to the German army that she had listened to the English radio. So when she was in prison with the other political prisoners, really, mm-hmm. she told them, I want to tell you, if I survive this war, if I make it out alive, I will kiss the first Allied soldier that I see. And she did. She flagged down my dad's Jeep. He was the first Canadian, that was the Canadian Army that liberated that part of France. She saw his Jeep, she had heard it and flagged it down. He was on the right side. She kissed him. There were fireworks, absolutely, for the two of them. And 7 months later, they were married, and she followed my dad back to Canada, where we were raised.
Right. Very tiny part of the story that Romie wrote using her dad's journals, or your mom's journals, sorry, and your father's your father's entries about his war experiences as a captain in the Canadian Army. He actually helped feed the troops. It is just remarkable. And your mom her family was hoteliers in France, and they were taken over by the occupiers, and just incredible details that you were able to uncover. But some of the cool stuff that happened after this book came out, See You in the Touquet, were emails and phone calls and things. So tell us about the one person that contacted you first. Was someone you didn't even know about.
There were so many people that talked about how this story reminded them and made them think of their own family members who had, been part of freeing Europe as well or impacted by the war. But one woman she sent it first to you, Deana.
She did.
A newspaper clipping from the 1930s a story I had never heard of at all, but that my dad had tried to save her mother's young brother, I think he was around 7 at the time, who was swimming in a lake in the Qu'Appelle Valley.
Right, in Saskatchewan.
Yes.
And before the war, wasn't it?
It was in the 30s, so my dad was a teenager.
Yeah.
And
didn't even know this story happened.
Never heard about it before. Yeah. So there were things that that also came like that were complete surprises. Mm-hmm. And you've had a blog about us being invited, my family and me, to France for the liberation celebrations last fall.
And that's
almost exactly now
because of your dad, and because your dad is still looked upon as the liberator of
As
the
the
town of
liberator.
Touquet, France.
Exactly.
Just very significant.
Right. And the fact that they were the good news story that came out of the war.
Local woman
that
marries a Canadian liberator.
Exactly. And they needed hope at that point. And so it's been a story that has really, survived the test of time, really.
Since the 1940s. And when you went there with your family to celebrate this, it was what the
80th anniversary of the liberation
and
of the Touquet.
The town put up huge posters with the cover of the book and some of the photos from inside of Romie's mom writing in her journals. And this is Rosemary Cottage, where Romie's grandparents, her mom, grew up and lived in Le Touquet, and her parents are actually buried in Le Touquet.
They are. And my parents are buried with her parents now back in Le Touquet. But one of the neat things, Deana, is the latest surprise that I had. Remarkable story. And it's kind of what has spurred us on to talk today.
Yes.
I was contacted by a young man in Britain who wanted to be in touch because he discovered a connection between our families. And what he had discovered was that his great-grandfather, who was in the British Army in the 1940s, so this was just before Dunkirk fell, so he had been captured by the German army and was being marched to Germany to a camp there, but he escaped and wound his way for 400 kilometers and ended up in Le Touquet. And his goal was to find a boat and to row back to France. And that was all occupied territory at that point. The Germans had a headquarters that they had established right across the street from Rosemary Cottage.
Dangerous territory for someone who's an escapee, really.
Yes,
an allied person.
He had to stay away, and all of the people. My mom, a couple of years later, ended up in prison.
Yes.
So they were always needing to be very careful.
Yes.
With the occupiers, the
Nazis. The Touquet was occupied for how many years?
It was 5 years.
5 years, yes. Yeah. And this happened early in that experience.
It was. So it was really early on. So anyway, this gentleman, Anthony Taylor, who was a British soldier, saw the sign on my mom's parents' home. It said Rosemary Cottage. That was the name of the house. Her mom loved the name Rosemary, so they had named it Rosemary Cottage. And he thought, English name, maybe they'll be friendly towards me.
Took
and
a chance.
Thought, I have to take a chance. Yeah, so he did. He knocked on the back door, asked in French, because he didn't know for sure. My grandfather, who answered the door, are there Germans nearby? And my grandfather said, yes, just go across the street. And he said, no, I'm an escaped British soldier. Please, I need your help. So my grandfather invited him in. He introduced him to my mother and her mother, and they fed him. And he explained what his goal was, to get a boat, and he was going to go to the fishing village nearby. And my grandfather said, no. We need to think about this, and he helped him find a boat, and they
somewhere safe to go.
Fed him over the next couple of days as they put everything together.
Kind of helped hide him, essentially.
He was in the forest behind and provided him with a raincoat and other things like that. This is a
story you had not heard.
Never heard of it.
No.
Never heard of it.
Okay.
And so he said before he left, I want you to know I'm in a real rush personally as well, because my wife is about to give birth to our first baby.
Back in England.
And if I survive, then and if the baby is a girl, we'll call the baby Rosemary. Well, lo and behold, Rosemary is the young man who contacted me, his grandmother, and she, in June, celebrated her 85th birthday. And he got in touch with me because he has been, doing research about his great-grandfather, and he put the name Rosemary Cottage into Chat GPT because they never
Artificial
knew.
intelligence to the rescue.
Exactly. They never knew where Rosemary Cottage was located. So in Rosemary's 85 years, she could never find out where
her namesake.
Exactly.
Wow.
Where it was.
Isn't that amazing?
So he put it into ChatGPT.
Because part of the reason was that the maps, the signs, the road signs in France were all deliberately taken down by the French citizens so that the occupiers could not find their way and locate where they were. So he didn't know he was in the town of the Touquet. Is that correct?
Well, I don't even really know, to tell you the
Okay,
truth.
I
I know
thought
the
that's what
road
it was.
signs were taken away.
Right.
But he just never told
We anticipate
his
that's
family.
what happened.
They just never
he
said.
may not
never
even
said.
ever have known where he was.
No, exactly.
Your grandfather probably would not have said you are in the town of the Touquet. He
Right.
wouldn't wanted him to. Less information is safer.
It was
in those
safer,
days.
probably.
Wow.
So, in any event, George, this young man who got in touch with me, was able to get a copy of my book
As
that
an ebook?
came up through ChatGPT when he put in the name Rosemary Cottage.
It popped up the title.
And he got
See
the
Le Touquet.
ebook, See You in Le Touquet, and they read the book and realized this is the Rosemary Cottage, this is the home, and that's why he got in touch. And for the first time, Rosemary knew where her namesake was. And so he planned to retrace his great-grandfather's steps, found his way to Le Touquet, saw all those photographed, the posters on the grounds across the street.
That are still there. Fabulous.
Yes,
Isn't that
they're
wonderful?
still there, and the explanation that's there that they've got a nice plaque in the middle of the square now that says Rond Point de la Rencontre, meeting place, and a story about my parents. So
it's on
that
Canadian
everybody,
Boulevard, correct?
one of the corners is Avenue des Canadiens. That my mom. She uncovered the name of Avenue. Yes, at the 40th anniversary
40
of
years
liberation.
ago.
Yeah,
Your parents used to go back a lot.
they did, every year almost. So yeah, so we had a Zoom call with George's family.
Oh my goodness.
We met Rosemary, and they were very excited to discover that I too am a Rosemary. So there's another Rosemary now.
So Romie is actually Rosemary.
Yeah. So we had a wonderful, it felt like family. It felt like all of our families grew bigger because of this.
Yeah, it's one of the beautiful benefits of telling these incredible true stories about our Canadian heroes, our unsung heroes, although your dad is a hero to the town of the Touquet. And it's lovely. I'm so honored that you chose me and my company to publish this book and get it out there for the world.
Yes, and that you said yes. That's right.
Thank you so very, very much. You can find this book at driverworks.ca and apparently through ChatGPT.